Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Friday. The weekend is very nearly here. I hope you're having a good one wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you as always for joining me the day before Arsenal's game against Sunderland in the Premier League. The final game, of course, before the final international break of 2025. This is a big one. I mean, they're all big. Let's face it, when you're going for what Arsenal are going for this season, they're all big. They all feel big. But this one, to me, anyway, as I've said in the last couple of shows, given the injuries, given the issues Arsenal got certainly up front, I just feel like if they can find a way to win this game against a very good Sunderland team who've been playing really well, who are unbeaten at home, we've got, I think, conceded the second fewest amount of goals this season behind Arsenal in the Premier League. If Arsenal can just find a way to win this game in any means possible and go into an international break with a guaranteed lead of 6 points at the top of the Premier League table, then fantastic. Fantastic. Just got to find a way to win that game. Anyway, Mikel's been speaking ahead of that game a little bit earlier at his press conference. I thought I'd pop back here and tell you exactly what was going on in the press conference, what he's had to say ahead of the game against Sunderland. If you talk about team news, obviously injury news, Granit Xhaka, who will be having a bit of an Arsenal reunion at the Stadium of Light tomorrow. Lewis-Skelly, who's been left out of the England squad. So there's plenty of bits and pieces that he was discussing in today's press conference. Also, just to let you know, Inside Arsenal Extra Time is going to be recorded a little bit later on today. I know I said on Wednesday we were going to record it that day and put it out on Wednesday. We tried. James had really bad internet issues and we had to just give up. Basically, it wasn't going to happen. So we've rescheduled and we're going to be recording it today. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That's going to be coming a little bit later this afternoon. Some nice extra content for you to take into the weekend. Right, let's talk about Mikel's press conference, and we'll start with injuries because, as always, that's the big talking point. Certainly when it comes to Arsenal right now, certainly when it comes to the forwards right now, we know there's, just injuries everywhere in Arsenal's forward line, and there continues to be. So Mikel speaking about it, he said, "No news. It all remains the same. Nobody new that can join the squad, so we're all the same." He was then asked, "Look, just to confirm, then, so no Odegaard, Havertz, Madueke, Gyökeres, or Martinelli. They are not available for tomorrow." And he said, "I cannot confirm all of that, but you are not far." I think a lot of people, certainly I've looked on social media and I've seen a lot of people sort of looked at that response and been like, "Oh, someone might be available. Someone might be available." He did kind of clarify that later on in the press conference when he was asked, you sounded like you were hinting one of them might be available. He said, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. My impression is I don't think anyone's going to be available. I'd be very, very surprised because I don't really see who it could be. Martinelli's not in the Brazil squad. He's pulled out the Brazil squad. Gyökeres has pulled out the Sweden squad. If they were to play or be available tomorrow, I don't think their international teams would be very, very happy. So that just leaves one of the long-term absentees. And from far as I'm aware, I was down the training ground on Monday and no one was training then. And given the length of time they've been out, I'd be very surprised if they came back, trained a couple of days, and then were suddenly in the team for the weekend or in the squad for the weekend. So I'd be very surprised on that. So that's what he had to say on that. Like when he was then asked, are they going to be back after the international break? Some of that crew, those sort of 5 or 6 players, he said some of them, all of them, I don't know. There are a lot of things that have to happen in the next 2 weeks and everything has to be perfect. But I think we'll be very close with most of them to be in a really strong position. Of course, the game immediately after the international break, it's just a small little matter of the first North London derby of the season, Tottenham at home. And you would imagine those players, Odegaard's, Gyökeres, who's not been involved in a North London derby before, Martinelli, all of that, like Havertz been out for so long, we'll be looking at that fixture, desperate to be involved. Madueke as well, of course, who's never had a North London derby, only played against Spurs for Chelsea. So a big couple of weeks for the injured crew. I'm not expecting any of them to be back tomorrow. I imagine we're going to see Mikel Merino playing as a central striker again for Arsenal. So that's what Mikel had to say on them. Gabriel Jesus. Now, I'm sure you've seen the video. If you haven't seen the video, I retweeted it yesterday. Arsenal put it out on their social accounts. Gabriel Jesus is back in full training. He's with the squad, doing contact training, twisting and turning, doing the rondos with the squad. They put the video out yesterday. It was brilliant to see. It was so good to see Jesus with a big smile on his face. He ended the video by saying, "I'm back, Gooners. Can't wait to see you at the Emirates." And it's just a lovely thing to see. It's been a extremely difficult year for Gabriel Jesus. Not played since that game against Manchester United in the FA Cup back in January. Massively missed, in my opinion. Would he have been starting all the time? No, of course he wouldn't. But just a hugely important member of the squad still. Different sort of profile to some of the forwards that Arsenal have, certainly the strikers that Arsenal have, and would have been very, very useful in the second half last season, and will, in my opinion, be hugely, hugely useful between now and the end of the season when he does get back. Now, I'm not expecting to see him back involved in actual team play for, I don't know, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe. He's just returned to full training now. You think an actual return to the squad and to a match day still feels like quite a way off. They're going to have to be very, very careful with him. And Mikel was asked about that. He was asked, okay, brilliant to see him. When do you think he could be back involved in the squad? He said, I don't know. Now it's about making the steps day by day in a different surrounding. Obviously, he's been doing everything on his own. Now he's got players around him, very competitive players around him. Let's see how he copes with that. But he's full of energy. I love the reaction of all his teammates when he first joined us. And yeah, it's great to have him back. When he was asked, what is a fit again, Gabriel Jesus, going to bring to your squad? He said he's a player that is very unpredictable, full of energy, super competitive, a player that comes from a context of difficulty in the last few seasons for various nasty injuries. So the level of hunger and desire that he's going to bring to the team is going to be amazing. I'm thrilled to have him. I think he's going to add something extra to the team that we don't have, and make sure that very soon we see him on that pitch making an impact for the team. And I love those quotes from Mikel, because you've heard me. I've said it on this show before. I do not want to see Gabriel Jesus leaving in January. Lots of people have said, let's just get rid of him in January. If an offer comes in, just take the money. I just don't see the point in the summer. Yes, fine if an offer comes in the summer. But for now, when this season is so important for Arsenal, when they've got such an opportunity to do something very, very special, you've got to stay as strong as you possibly can. And you get a fit, hungry Gabriel Jesus back in the squad for the last 6 months of the season, with the experience that he's got and the quality he's got when he's fit. Why would you want to get rid of that? What good is £10 million or £15 million in January going to do to us in terms of winning the title? Nothing. They're not going to reinvest it. They're not going to buy someone for that. So what good is that? In my opinion, keep Gabriel Jesus. He's going to be far more important for Arsenal potentially winning a title this season than 10, 15 million pounds in the bank, if you can get that, which I don't think they probably would anyway, given his injuries, and he's only just come back to full fitness. So I'm delighted. But certainly by those comments there, I don't think Mikel Arteta is entertaining the idea of letting him go. He understands how big he could be and how important he could be, because he does bring something different. You look at when everyone's fit, you've got Gyökeres, you've got Havertz as those central strikers. Jesus is a completely different profile. He can play out wide as well, on the right, on the left. Adds some really, really important versatility to the squad. Mikel was asked, how does having Jesus, Kai and Victor Gyökeres work? Do you see it working, those players sort of together and being able to rotate them? And he says, yes, because we haven't had those three before. Now we don't have Victor and we haven't had Kai for 3 months, or many forwards. Unfortunately, that's something that is consistently happening. So we need those options, and what an option to have with Gabby. And he's right. If you get rid of Jesus in January and then suddenly Havertz gets another injury and is out for 2 months, which hopefully won't happen. But look, he's picked up 2 big injuries in the last year. If Gyökeres is now injured, if you get rid of Jesus and suddenly you get injuries again, you're screwed again, and you're back to playing Mikel Merino up front, which, as good as he is at that, you don't really want, ideally, you don't want that to happen. So I don't get the argument of letting Gabriel Jesus go in January. I just absolutely don't. I think it's fantastic to see him back. And looking forward to seeing what he will bring when he is back into the team. But I think that'll be a little while yet. Obviously, Granit Xhaka was a big talking point in the press conference. We saw the interview that he gave to The Athletic yesterday. Xhaka said a lot of nice things about Mikel Arteta. Those things were reciprocated today in Mikel's section of the press conference, talking about Granit Xhaka. He was asked about him as a man, as a player, and as about the sort of situation that Xhaka was in when Arteta arrived at the club, obviously with the fallout that we'd seen with towards the end of the Emery era and the captaincy being stripped and the issues with the fans, all that sort of stuff. Mikel said, I loved every minute that we spent together. When I joined, he was in a special moment in his life and his career. And between all of us, we tried to guide him, to give him a different perspective, to make him feel loved, valued. And he responded in an incredible way. He made me a better coach. He helped us to develop and improve a lot as a football team and as a club. And I'll be eternally grateful, because I have great memories with him. He was then asked about the decision to let Granit go. at the end of that first season, that first sort of title charge season, and was asked, did you try and convince him to stay? And Mikel said, well, I'd already done it once, and then we extended his contract. And then when he came in and he explained the reasons, you have to understand the human being and you have to be grateful. It was a unique opportunity for him to go back to his country. Not his country, because his country's Switzerland, but you know what he meant, to go back to his country, to his family. And there were certain things that he wanted to experience as well. And I believe it was the right moment. He was very honest and he was very straightforward, and he always is, and we'll find a good solution for all of us, which is what we did. So yeah, lots of nice words from Mikel, as you can imagine, for Granit Xhaka. As I said yesterday, got so much respect for Granit, for what he's done, for how he turned his career around, for the personality he has, the character he has, the captain he's become, the player he's become. He's been one of the best midfielders in the world for a while now. And you see what he's doing at Sunderland, the impact he's made. It doesn't surprise me at all. He's just been a fantastic, fantastic signing. I had a question yesterday. I can't remember who it's from. I didn't get to answer it, saying, do you think we should have tried to bring Granit back in the summer rather than Christian Norgard? I don't think Granit would have done that, first of all. I mean, who would I have chosen if I had the choice myself? I would have absolutely said Granit Xhaka, but they are very different players. The Xhaka that we saw develop at Arsenal towards the end of Arteta is very different to the role that Christian Norgard plays now. And I think if you tried to play Xhaka, he'd do it well. But I see Granit Xhaka still, in my mind now, kind of in that more advanced role where he was so good for Arsenal rather than the deeper role that Norgard occupies at Arsenal. But he's been a fabulous signing for Sunderland. Fair play to him. Absolutely fair play to him. And I'm absolutely convinced, had he not gone that season, that summer, I think Arsenal 100% win the league the following season. Absolutely. I mean, they lost the championship by a point that season after he'd gone. And they spent the first 6 months trying to work out how to replace him and couldn't. And had he been there, I think they absolutely win that league that season. So that's a regret that I will always have. And I imagine it's probably a regret, although he won't say it, that Mikel might have as well. The England squad has been announced. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it there. There's one notable omission from an Arsenal point of view, and that is Miles Lewis-Skelly. So Saka, Eze and Rice are involved, but Lewis-Skelly, who's been a bit of a mainstay in Thomas Tuchel's squads for the last few of them anyway, is not involved. Tuchel did kind of warn before the last meetup that a lack of minutes, a lack of involvement for MLS at club level could lead to him missing out on the squad, and it has. He's not involved in this one. Mikel was asked about that and about whether you're going to talk to MLS about it. And he says, look, we are here to support and help each other and to give a good perspective of the situation. And in the case of Miles, when you look at his age and what he's done, it's just remarkable. So don't look at one moment what is happening for you, because maybe it happens for the right reason. And today you cannot see it. And I think he's right. This is a 19-year-old player you're talking about. And I know it's slightly clouded by the fact that this is a World Cup year. Players want to play at the World Cup as well. And Miles would have thought he's got a really good opportunity. I still think he has a good opportunity of making it to the World Cup as well, because I do think he'll play plenty of minutes. But he's a 19-year-old kid who just had an unbelievable breakthrough season last season that none of us expected. His rise was at such a pace that no one could have predicted it at the start of the season. No one would have predicted it in December last season, what he would have gone on to achieve. And, he is only 19. And the reason he's not playing this season as much is because he's got an unbelievable player playing ahead of him who's been at the absolute top of his game. He's got so much time left in his career. You can't rush things. There's very few 19-year-olds who will be playing week in, week out at a club like Arsenal, challenging for the trophies that Arsenal are trying to challenge for. So I think there is a perspective that needs to be brought to the situation. I'm sure Miles is disappointed, but sometimes you've got to step back and think, you know what, I'm playing. I think I had a look at this. He's made 13 appearances already for Arsenal this season in all comps. No, sorry, not for Arsenal, because he's played he's played one World Cup qualifier in that. So 10 appearances in all comps already for Arsenal. Only a few starts, obviously, but that's not bad for a 19-year-old, is it? So you do have to have some perspective as well. And I've seen people saying, is this going to mean that he's going to push for a move in January? I mean, I absolutely hope it doesn't, and I can't imagine it will. You just got to, as Arteta says, I think, have a little bit of perspective about the situation. So those were some of the big sort of talking points from the press conference today. I do have a few questions and comments to go through now before we wrap this one up for the morning. Christopher Sinclair, first of all, this is in response to what we were talking about yesterday, the Crystal Palace versus Arsenal game, which has been moved to December 23rd, and Arsenal and Palace are both scheduled to be playing on December 21st in the Premier League, and they're both pushing for those games to be moved to December the 20th, so they have an extra day recovery before the Carabao Cup quarter-final. Christopher says, why can't the game be played on the 24th? I mean, that's Christmas Eve. It'd be nighttime in Christmas Eve. Can you imagine having 60,000 people? It's just not fair for the fans at all, really. You know, everyone wants to be back in their families, preparing for Christmas Day, all that sort of stuff. I mean, how you would get that amount of police on Christmas Eve? I know it's technically a normal working day, but to get the security, the police, everyone involved to do a football match on that is just not ideal. I mean, that has happened before. I think Chelsea played on Christmas Eve. It might be last season. They played at Wolves, I think. But you know, they would not. The Met Police would not want to be doing that and putting their services on the line on Christmas Eve in the evening for that, and asking their workers to do that. So I think there's a multitude of reasons. You know, getting around London on Christmas Eve, it's just not going to be fun at all. So it's just not going to happen, I don't think. Well, it won't happen. And then Gunnar TM says, I don't understand why they need to play 2 games in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. It should be a neutral venue, just like the FA Cup, 1 game, and it would be open spot in the calendar to move the quarters to the Carabao Cup. I agree, and I think that will happen, but I don't think it can yet, because until the current TV deal expires that the EFL have got that covers the Carabao Cup, you can't suddenly change the schedule, because everyone, you know, the broadcasters have paid for a certain amount of fixtures and all that sort of stuff. But once this TV deal expires, I'm pretty sure the 2-legged semi-final will be done and dusted. I just don't see how that can possibly survive anymore. So I think that is something that will change. Mikel did talk about this in a press conference today, and he said he was very optimistic that the game would be moved to the 20th. We'll wait and see if that actually happens. He says good talks are ongoing with everyone, Premier League, with the clubs. So they're all pushing for it. It's just down to whether the Premier League will agree to it. So we'll wait and see on that. Right, a couple more now. Emil says, hi, Charles, regular viewer, love the show. Thank you very much. With our strong start to the Premier League, I'm wondering how much you think we should prioritise the Champions League. I hope we can get good results against Bayern and Bruges, secure a top 8 placement, and then we can rotate heavily for the final 2 games to protect our players for the Premier League. Assuming we make it to the knockouts, how strong a squad would you play in Europe? That if it risks domestic form, if we finish the season with a League Cup and a Premier League, I'd hope we'd all be ecstatic. The Premier League has to be our number 1 priority. Not suggesting we throw the European games, but reserve our strongest 11 in the league. Thoughts? I mean, yeah, I do, but I think the squad, also, providing Arsenal get all our injured players back, then we're in a position where we can rotate and still be very, very strong. And I think we will do that. Obviously, if you can guarantee top 8 finish with a couple of games to go, which I don't think you'll be able to do mathematically, but you'll be in a really good position to do it. Certainly, if you beat Bayern Munich and Bruges, then you'll be in a fantastic position to do it. But there is an importance now to finishing in the top 8 and as high as possible. Like last season, obviously, was ridiculous. Arsenal finished, what was it, 2nd or 3rd? And then they didn't really get, although they missed they got by through to the next round. You know, they had to play the semi-final, quarterfinal and the semi-final. They had the away leg 2nd, which was ridiculous. Considering they finished that high up the league. That has changed now because of that, because of what happened last season. That has changed now. When the higher up the league you finish, you sort of guarantee yourself a home leg in the second leg, you know, in the quarterfinals and semi-finals, and that could be really, really beneficial to Arsenal as well. So there is big plus points to ensuring you finish your Champions League phase as strong as possible. But yeah, I think if you do guarantee it yourself, then you would prioritise a little bit the league games that are around those fixtures, of course. But this is Mikel Arteta we're talking about. I don't think he'll rotate too heavily when it comes to the Champions League. And EJ says, thinking back to when Xhaka was booed, the club was in an abyss. Mikel has done a huge job bringing us to the point we are now. Easy to forget how dark those days were. It is easy to forget, because I think we all tried desperately to forget, because they were really dark days. They were horrible times. It was not fun at all. And I think sometimes it is really important to sort of take a step back from things and see where Arsenal are now as a club. You know, top unbeaten in the Champions League, top of the Premier League. You know, you go back 4 or 5 years, you just wouldn't have ever dreamt that would happen in such a short space of time. So I think it is important to remember that at times, and it's certainly been a remarkable few years that we've had. Let's just hope hope, fingers crossed, we can crown it the way that we all want it to be crowned this season. Right, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'll be back a little bit later on with James Benge for extra time. Until then, have a great day. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll speak to you very, very soon. Bye-bye.